Hi, my friends. This is the 1921 diary series, and we finally got some warm weather here, so I'm having a cola, and I wish I could offer you one, but there's just not enough to go around. That's my little joke. Dimitri would laugh. All right, so today we actually are going back in time to the 1st of January 1921. And the reason for that, as I've explained, is Dimitri's kind of odd relationship to time, is sort of oddly nonlinear. And so we just finished the long diary entry for the 15th of January. And that actually, so this is a new volume of diaries that he started for 1921. And that entry of the 15th is actually the first entry. It goes from page 1 to page 24. And then, after having done this lengthy overview written on the 15th, we go back and start with the 1st of January, but he is not writing this on the 1st of January. He's writing this 15 days later. So, yeah, wrap your head around that. But on the actual 1st January, he would have sat down and made some notes so that he could remember what he'd done and what he wanted to talk about in his diary entry for the 1st of January. So the 15th, that long entry was written in Paris. But now we're in Monte Carlo, back in room 237 of the Hotel de Paris, and with the old crowd whom you remember, the Polovtsovs and Dmitri and Gulia, and then off on the one side, Andrei and Kshesinska, and on the other side, Gavril and Nina, and also some friends who have turned up, May Dubasova, and some members of the Radziwill family, mainly Papa Dominique Radziwill, and his daughter Dolly. Okay, and when we ended these diary entries before, it was New Year's Eve, and Dmitri had won big at the casino. He'd won 5,000 francs, French francs, and had decided to spend 2,000 French francs hosting a big New Year's Eve supper for his friends at the Café de Paris, and that had been about 8 people, I think. So this is where we resume. Okay, let's get going. It's a Saturday in Monte Carlo. As I said in my last diary entry, I hosted a New Year's Eve supper at the Café de Paris. It cost me around 2,000 francs, but because I'd won big that day, spending the money was not only pleasant, but reminded me of the past. I ended up going to bed very late in a state of advanced intoxication. May and Papa Dominic were also both frightfully snockered. I woke up in the morning with a terrible hangover, but despite my condition, I went to the Cap d'Ale to play tennis at André's place, the village alam. First we had lunch, during which I was showered with sarcastic remarks disguised as sweet words about my appearance and how I saw in the new... I'm going to read that sentence again. First we had lunch, during which I was showered with sarcastic remarks disguised as sweet words about my appearance and how I had seen in the new year. Of course, my game was about on a par with André's. At 5 o'clock, I went back to Monte Carlo and, still wearing my tennis clothes, had tea with Maria, Gulia, the Polovtsovs, Gavril, and Nina. We went to a new and very nice bar, Orest, where Romanian musicians were playing, 3 of whom had played at blank in Petrograd. So they played Russian things the whole time. Tea was very amusing, I dined at the invitation of Papa Dominic Maria Gulia, the Polovtsovs. Okay, here we go again. Tea was very amusing. Full stop. I dined at the invitation of Papa Dominic, Maria Gulia, the Polovtsovs, and Dolly were there. Naturally, we went to the casino and then to the Carlton. I treated again because I won more money. I got home late. Okay, so what I'd meant to say there was that he dined at the invitation of Papa Dominic, who had also invited Maria Gulia, the Polovtsovs, and Dolly. Okay, so let's go back a bit. I should have looked up these places. I have looked up the Hotel de Paris in Monte Carlo, and magnificent place, and looked at the pictures, but I have not looked up the Café de Paris or the Carlton or this new place, Orest. And I should have done. I would guess that all three of them still exist. The Carlton and the Café de Paris, no, the Carlton and Orest are both referred to by Dmitri with the word kabak. And I don't even think that word is used anymore in Russia. I think it was strictly pre-revolutionary, and a kabak was, well, nowadays we would call it a bar or a lounge. So, yeah, I think in my original translation of the first diary entry where they had gone to the Carlton, I just settled for the word, I used the word pub, and then I thought, no, that's not right. It's more of a bar. But you get the picture. And I will look up Orest and see what kind of an establishment it looks like. At any rate, the Carlton had kind of become their fallback place because apparently it was much less expensive than the Café de Paris. Okay, and possibly also less expensive than Orest. No, they go to the Carlton even after Dmitri wins more money. All right, so I used the word snockered because it was just what sprang into mind. I have no idea if it's American slang, if it's Northwest American slang. I just don't know, but it's a word I heard a lot when I was a kid. Oh, you know, my parents would come home from a dinner party or something and say, yeah, so-and-so was snockered. And my parents were strict non-drinkers, so there was always a bit of a value judgment attached to that. But anyway, as in many instances, as I go through things and think about the publication of these, I will need to go back in some instances and put in a word that Dmitri, who spoke English well, could possibly himself have used that would have been appropriate for that time and place and social class. And I'm guessing that snockered actually doesn't fit the bill. Okay, despite his hangover, off he goes to see Andrei and the problematic Shasinska. And he is showered with sarcastic remarks disguised as sweet words about my appearance. So I'm guessing, you know, I don't really have to fill you in. I'm sure you understand the nature of that sort of thing. Maybe something like, oh, Dmitri, you look great today. You really look on top of your game, or something along those lines. Well, now, Dmitri himself had a reputation everywhere for being sarcastic. And even one of his girlfriends, the ballerina Vera Karali, talked about how he was just relentlessly sarcastic, and it got on people's nerves. But anyway, I guess that made him well qualified to recognize sarcasm when he saw it. And so then, let's see, they have tea as a group with Gavril and Nina, because Gavril and Nina are at odds with Andrei and Malia Kshasinska. And they have it at Orest. And what do you think? Romanian musicians playing there. And three of them had played at some place, the name of which I can't make out, in Petrograd. And, it sort of makes you think about the vacuum that was left after the Russian Revolution, not only for Russians who had to flee, but to a lesser extent for people like these three Romanian musicians who had been living and making their livelihood in Russia and now had to go elsewhere. So they turn up in Monte Carlo. And Dmitri very often, when something like this occurs, talks about how it makes him feel. If it makes him feel like crying, if it makes him feel wistful, or if it's something that he enjoys, like this Russian review that he saw in Paris, the bat that he loved so much. But he does that more in the long diary entries, so I guess it's not really surprising that he doesn't remark about that here, beyond saying that they were playing Russian music the whole time. And probably, taking advantage of the fact that at this particular period in time, Monte Carlo was clearly full of white Russian refugees, but wealthy refugees. And so they were sort of catering to them. Okay, I guess that's it, except that I hope that he's tucking some of this money away and not going to go and blow it all, some of his winnings. But we'll see about that. Actually, because of the way I was doing it before, we are in a position now where we have to skip around a little. So I realized, so this is, of course, is the diary entry for the 1st of January. And then when I went to read ahead, so I could give you an idea of what's coming up next, I realized that I had actually already translated, and we'd already talked about the diary entry for the 2nd of January. And this was the whole thing with Malia trying to get something going between Dmitri and this young woman. Dmitri spends the night at Andrei and Malia's place, and Malia is, in his words, overtly playing the pimp. But anyway, if you don't remember that, if you're joining now without having watched the previous videos, then look for that one. That was the 2nd of January, 1921. And for some reason, I had that one already translated on my computer, actually. And so we went ahead and did that one, but we have not done the diary entry for January 3rd. And chronologically, the last regular diary, non-long regular diary entry we did was the 22nd of January. And that was when Coco made her first appearance, and Dmitri was very intrigued by her and drawn by her, and she gave him a ride home. And so you can sort of calculate. So next time we'll be doing the 3rd January, and then we'll be resuming with Coco when we reach the 23rd January, so in 20 days. But meanwhile, I'm sure we will be skipping other diary entries, because I think I've done several of them already between the 3rd and the 22nd. Certainly we did the ones beginning with Dmitri's return to Paris. So it's not going to take as long as it ordinarily would to do 20 days worth of diary entries. All right. Well, and then we'll be back doing things in a linear chronological way, to the extent that Dimitri's particular method of diary keeping allows us. So, I will see you next time. Bye.